Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. Brandon Mileski along with Pat Micheletti, former Golden Gopher great. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, Brandon. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Calendar year about to turn to September, which means fall is coming. You can already kind of feel it a little bit in the mornings, but that always means hockey's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's getting a little cool at night. It really gets down there. So we're there, and that's good. That's a good thing. We're ready for it.
As always, Beyond the Pod is brought to you by SodaStick.com. We will talk about the Arizona Coyotes and our vision for the division coming up shortly. But first, we're pleased to be joined by the head coach of the St. Cloud State men's hockey program, Brett Larson. Brett, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
We've had you on a couple times, and we always talk about your coaching. And when when you were a new coach at St. Cloud, we talk about your program, your team. And I realized that we never really talked about your playing career. So I decided to look. I decided to look you up on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
After Minnesota Duluth, you played for the Madison Monsters,
Yep.
Louisville River Frogs, San Diego Gulls, Utah Grizzlies, Long Beach Ice Dogs, Las Vegas Thunder, the Rote Teufel Bad Nauheim. I'm probably saying that wrong. Odense Bulldogs, Basing State Bison, Florida Seals. Now some teams I'm familiar with: the Minnesota Arctic Blast, Orlando Jackals, and Minnesota Blue Ox. So just tell me about what was it like to kind of play for all those teams and kind of being a little bit of a nomad from year to year, going to different places.
Yeah. You know what? I just loved hockey. I never planned to play that long, and I kept getting some opportunities and some good ones. I got out of college, and I was originally drafted by Detroit. I always tell the story. My last two games were at Minnesota in the playoffs. They told me they were going to come talk to me after the game. And I had 2 goals that night, I remember, and thought I had a really good weekend, and they never even waited the round. So I knew I knew my NHL career was a long way away. And so anyway, great opportunity. The first year I go play Madison Monsters, head coach Mark Johnson, not a bad guy to play for. Learned a ton from him. And then for the most part, went out to San Diego for 4 years, played for a guy named Steve Martinson, a St. Cloud State alum. Learned a ton from Marty, became the player assistant coach there in my last couple of years. Was trying to still get called up. Back then, the IHL was kind of the league you wanted to get to below the NHL. And I'd get call-ups to Long Beach, get called up to Las Vegas, get called up to Utah. Matter of fact, one kind of funny story I thought is Marty called me and said, "Hey, you got called up to Long Beach tonight." And I said, "Okay." So I drive up to Long Beach. I get there. I put my stuff in the locker room, and there's this old time coach, John Van Boxmeer, been around forever. And, Dan Bilesman was a captain of the team, and a bunch of these guys. And so I'm getting ready. I'm stretching, doing all that, and getting a little closer to game time when guys are all coming in. And Van Boxmeer walks in the locker room and goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "Well, what do you mean? I got called up." He goes, "Not to us, you didn't. I got called up to Utah, and their locker room was down the hall." So I had to pack up my bag and go down there. And Butch Goring was the coach in Utah at the time, and we had a pretty good laugh about that. But I was a little bit of a suitcase trying to get back up. And then when I realized I wasn't going to make that league, I got an opportunity to go to Europe and ended up over there for 7 years and loved it.
So what was your favorite stop out of all the places you played, and what was your least favorite?
Oh, San Diego is tough to beat. That was a 4-year stint. I loved playing there. I loved playing for Marty. We had great teams, won a couple championships. I love that. And then the European experience, really, we thought, I got an offer to go over to Germany. My wife and I, we just got married, thought, okay, let's try this for a year, and that'll probably be it. But I just loved it. I loved playing over there. I loved the people you met. I loved getting to know the local people there and do things that, just were kind of life experiences that we were able to do, to travel, and kind of used hockey, to be honest, for a great life experience. And I think I still continue to learn a lot about the game. And I think I learned a lot about living in different cultures and meeting different people. And I thought it was just a great experience.
Your resume is long. You played for a lot of different coaches. How much of that have you used, with all of the different coaches, all the different leagues, different styles? Did that help you in your coaching career, you think, a little bit?
For sure. And I guess the one thing, and you guys know this, it sounds cliche, but the one thing I knew even coming to St. Cloud is you have to start with being yourself. You can't try to be somebody that you're not. The players sniff that out in a heartbeat, and you're not authentic. And I think that doesn't work. But to say that I didn't learn from Mark Johnson, Steve Martinson, Scott Sandlin, the guys that I've been around, and Steve Rollocks, and just on and on and on. I think you take little things all the time. And my first year pro, I just realized quickly that, there's certain things about a coach when you can tell they're all in, you want to go through the wall for them. And Mark Johnson it was one of his first year coaching. And I just remember how much you could tell he cared about the guys in that room, and guys would do anything for him. And Steve Martinson was the same way. And I think that I did learn a ton. Yeah, I picked up some drills here and there and some systems here and there that you learn from, but I got to watch some really good coaches and learn from those guys, just how they handled the room, how they handled tough situations, how they dealt with players of all different types of personalities. So I always say I got a master's degree in coaching just from watching those guys.
Yeah. As players, when we were all players, all three of us, I mean, you go through the year, and then you try to work on things to improve your game. That's going to get you to that next level. As a coach, what do you do to, or just to become even a better coach than you are?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that, I guess maybe some good things came out of COVID. When we had so much downtime in COVID, we had different coaching groups that got together for Zoom calls with NHL guys that were willing to spend an hour with us on the different topics. So I had 4 or 5 other coaches that, are kind of friends, and we're in it together. And we would do a different topic with an NHL coach every other week, which was great. And you'd be surprised how much time those guys would give you. And I'm proud to say it, because now I'm really happy for him that he got a head job. But, Derek Lalonde was one of those guys as an assistant in Tampa Bay that would just give us, multiple, so much of his time just trying to help us learn. And that's the kind of guy he is. And I think that's a big reason why he's the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings right now. And Derek and I coached a U.S. World Junior A Challenge team together, but we did those things all the time, and we continue those now throughout the summer. And then I think for me, some of the things that are really fun, to be honest, are getting out on the road recruiting in June and July. When you're at the USHL camps, you're at the USA festivals, 9 times out of 10, you end up at a Buffalo Wild Wings or somewhere at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And those conversations around the table with other college coaches, you learn a ton. So I think a lot of it's your network and continuing to build those relationships and learn from people around you. That I know it's not just me, it's most of the guys in the coaching world that we're really lucky to have that.
Which leads me right into this, and it's a perfect segue. I'm at an event the other day, and I run into an unnamed assistant general manager. We don't have to say his name. And we strike up a conversation. And of course, he knows what I do. And so he asked me about players in the NCHC, and then and in the league, and what teams are going to be, pretty good this year and such. And then we got into the coaches, and Brett Larson gets brought up, and he says he is going to coach in the National Hockey League, period, stop. So that's a little
wow
shot to you. So
hey,
we can.
They only say it usually takes one guy to believe in you. Maybe he's the one guy.
If you would have seen,
you got one fooled, Brett.
Yeah.
If you would have seen the expression on his face when he said it, it was like he would look me in the eye and was dead serious and said he will coach in the National Hockey League. So that's.
I appreciate that. It's great to hear, but if that ever did happen, I'd love to do it with the National Championship at St. Cloud first.
Yeah,
that's the only thing we're thinking about right now.
Right.
Well, let's talk about your coaching staff, Brett. Nick Oliver out; he's going to become the head coach of the Fargo Force. You're elevating RJ Inga. I know every year players are going to go in and out, and you're going to have new players. But as a coaching staff, you kind of have your own little team, right? That you guys are together. You're with each other so often and chatting so often. How difficult is it to kind of disrupt that chemistry? Not that you don't have chemistry with RJ, because you clearly do, because he was on your staff. But just knowing that your coaching staff is going to be different than the year before, how how does that change things going into the
Well,
season?
it's interesting. And this goes back to maybe some time at Duluth talking to Scott about how when a new person comes in, they bring in some new energy, some new life, some new ideas. And I think occasionally it can be a good thing. You don't want it to happen too much, but occasionally it can be a really good thing for you. In this case, it's funny. I brought up Derek Lalonde earlier. There's a picture behind me in my office of me and RJ and Derek coaching the World Junior A Challenge team together. And I was the head coach. Those two guys were assistants. And RJ and I were looking at the picture going, what happened to us? Newsy, Derek's the head coach of the Red Wings right now. But anyway, the hockey world's as you guys both know, it's a really tight community. Guys know each other really well. RJ and I were the same age. We played in the Select 16, Select 17s together. We've coached together, played against each other, played in San Diego, all those things. And he was our director of hockey ops last year and fit in great. So for our players, it was a really easy transition, and so was it with the staff. Obviously disappointed to lose Nick, but when you hire good people, they're going to move on. He deserved that opportunity, and he's going to be great at it. We got really, really lucky, and it's a little bit off the map, I guess, for some people. But, we lost a guy in Nick who had just finished playing a few years ago, who was really close to the players, who could really communicate and connect with those guys on a really strong level. Well, we were able to bring in Clark Custer as our director of hockey ops, and Clark was an assistant captain here 3 years ago, and a very well-respected player and person, just like Nick was. So we're really fortunate to have Clark in that role. I think where he's gonna fill a lot of Nick's shoes in some of those areas. RJ is going to be a great assistant, as he has been. But I think our staff right now, you think about it, Dave Shyak's been a head coach at the Division I level for 7 years. He put his resume up against anybody. RJ's been in the game a long time, really well respected. We get that young life and energy and connection back with Clarky to be with our guys. I honestly, I know I'm biased, but I'd put our staff up against anybody.
Hey, Brett, before we talk about this upcoming season, let's go back to last year a little bit. And you make the NCAAs, you lose to Quinnipiac, but there was and David Rennick gets hurt. That hurts you. He was terrific all season long, and then you have to play your backup, who performed admirably, but he wasn't David Rennick. That being said, there was a stretch in the season where you weren't losing a lot. There were a lot of ties in there.
Yep.
And which, to me, for a team to win a national championship, you really have to be, on your game, winning at the right time, winning some of those games. Do you think not winning some of those games, even though you weren't playing, you weren't playing poorly, but just getting that winning feeling had maybe a little bit of an effect in the NCAAs?
Yeah, I do, although I would say if you looked at how we played that game against Quinnipiac in general as our team, it was the best we had played in a long time. And we had gone up to Duluth at the end of the season after that kind of tough stretch and had to get 4 out of 6 points to get home ice, and probably played 2 of our best games of the year. So I felt we were trending in the right direction. But you're right, because there is a belief in winning, right? The year that we went to the national championship game, those ties or 1-goal games, we found a way to get done. And that builds a belief, continued belief. This year, this last year, we tied or lost some of those games. And I do think at the end of the day, you've got to have that feeling that you're going to pull those games out, because when it gets down to it, it's going to be a 1-goal game. It's going to be a tight game in the NCAAs. It could go either way. You got to have the confidence that you can pull that game out no matter what happens, no matter what's thrown at you. So I agree with you, Pat. That stretch where, the February stretch where we went into Denver, into North Dakota, into Western, had a couple tough home games where we probably had 3 or 4 ties in there, a couple losses and only a couple wins. That was definitely a tough part of the season for us.
Now, transitioning from last year to this year, you're going to lose 44% of your goals, 43% of your points going into this year. I know you had a lot of change. You dabbled in the transfer portal in the offseason. You got some freshmen coming in. How do you replace that void of scoring next year?
Well, I look at our lineup right now, and depth isn't an issue for us. I really like where we're at. I think guys are going to step up. I see VD Miettinen coming off a little bit of a sophomore slump. Usually you don't call 10 or 12 goals a slump, but with him being the freshman of the year before, you do. He looks ready and he's back. Yami Crandall looks great. Zach Okabe, these guys that have been big for us. Now, I just expect all those guys to pick up 4 or 5 goals this year each, where it's kind of by kind of our by committee, right? I think Micah Miller, he's had a great summer. I think he's poised to potentially have a Fitzy fifth year of a best year of college hockey. Kyler Kupka, I'm excited about Grant Cruikshank coming in. I think the role he's going to play with us is going to be perfect for him, and I think he's going to be able to contribute more offensively. So there's a whole group there, plus our freshmen. I really like the class so far. And on the blue line, I mean, we got guys like Spencer Meyer, Jack Pert, Josh Lutke, Brendan Bushy back, Andre Treble back. And then we had some really talented freshmen. Brady Zemer has continued to get better. So I like our depth. I like the excitement and the freshness that we feel this year. Every once in a while, when you have a big turnover, it's kind of a fresh life, fresh feel, and I like that. Our goaltenders are coming in and working hard, and I think a big thing for us is it's wide open back there. And if one of those guys can grab the reins and help lead this team, I think we got a chance to be really good.
Well, talk about your goaltending, because as you mentioned, you have one guy coming back, and then you've got a one transfer coming in, correct? And
transfer into freshman. Exactly. Yep. Jackson Castor obviously is going to really fight to get over the feeling he left last year with, and he knows it. And we've talked about it. He's a much better goalie, and he knows it than how things went at the end. I think he's learned from it, and he's got an opportunity to battle for the job. Dominic Bassey coming in from CC, went in pretty young, went in as an 18-year-old. Dominic's come in with, I think, a fresh, new, clean slate where we're pushing him hard, and I think he's definitely got the talent to be a big-time goalie in this league.
Is that one? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I was going to go to James Gray. James was the OJHL goalie of the year last year, top five in Canada in tier 2, another talented kid who's got an opportunity to come in and push. So it's new, it's fresh, but we got 3 guys really pushing each other.
Is that a situation where you got to play him in a game, or, each give him an opportunity, or, or are you hoping when he merges in camp where you say, this guy just earned it?
We're probably going to give them opportunities early. We're going to have to. I look back to the year 2 years ago, well, actually 3 years ago, where we kind of started building towards that national championship run. And that's the year we lost 14 guys, including all the Palings, Schultz, Jacksons, everybody. We had to play Yami Crandall and those guys young. We had to play D young. Obviously we still had David, but there are going to be some freshmen and the goalies. We're going to have to play them through some things early if we want to develop them and see who can really take the reins. So I'm excited about that, though, because so far, at least with our training early, they look pretty good.
All right, for the Minnesota Wild fans out there, Brandon and I can talk about Jack Peart till in the face, in our opinion. You coach him every day. I think the kid is an absolute stud, and I think he'll play in the National Hockey League. Give us your assessment of where he is, and just what type of player he is for you.
Well, I'll tell you this. He went through his ups and downs as any freshman does, and he had a really good year. I think back early in our schedule, it's funny, we were just watching video. We're playing in Mankato in front of a packed house in early October, 1 and 2 in the country. Some of the best hockey we'd seen all year. Jack's first night struggled a little bit. Second night, best player on the ice, in my opinion. Playing Minnesota at Minnesota, struggled a little bit the first night. Second night, I thought he was one of the best players on the ice. He continued to develop and I think and show what type of player he can be. He had a really good summer now. He's come back right now in the best shape he's been in. He had a good World Junior. He was one of the younger guys, so he didn't play a ton, but in the role he played, he did a nice job. He was good on their power play. I see Jack being a huge part of our power play unit, which I know we'll have a good one. He's going to be running that thing. He's going to step up to be one of our top defensemen this year. Sometimes, though, when you watch him, I guess for the casual fan, he's the guy that just does all the little things right. Yeah. And you might not notice him that much because the puck's on his tape and it's off his tape to the right guy. He's very rarely overhandling it or putting himself in a tough spot. He doesn't have to try to make a highlight reel play to get out of trouble, because usually he's made the right read early enough where he's done the right things and the play's going the other way. So I do think he's a little under the radar because of how smart and efficient he is and usually making the right plays. But I think where he'll be noticed significantly will be on the power play.
One follow-up on Jack Peart, because I've heard coaches like you talk about him, and everyone says the same thing: high hockey IQ, does all the little things. So when you're looking at his development, like how he can improve from last year to this year, is it just a matter of getting bigger, stronger, faster, or are there elements of his game that you think he can improve on?
That's a little bit. I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid, right? He came in very, very young. And I think the physical maturity, he went through some growth and different things where his body was changing and he was kind of turning into a man a little bit. And he went through a phase this summer where he had to really work hard to get, I think, in college hockey shape to be a guy that's going to play a ton of minutes and lead. And he's done that. He looks really good right now. And it's just that mental flip from being a support guy to being the guy. And I can see it in his DNA and who he is. He's excited about that role of being the guy, of leading the power play, being in the top pair. I thought he did a great job of supporting last year, but I think as a 19-year-old now, he's got that mental, you can just see it in him. He's got that look in his eye that he's ready to step up and do more.
I want to get back to coaching here for a quick second. You've had the opportunity to coach the World Juniors. And then the big dream, the Olympics. When you get in that situation, you're playing, you're coaching guys that are all at the highest level. How different is that from, taking nothing away from, going back to St. Cloud, where, not everyone is at that high a level? I mean, how much differently do you have to coach as a coach?
You know what is interesting, and I'll obviously the Olympics experience I learned a ton from, and I went into it thinking a lot of these guys are pros. Every guy that's college guy is a top guy that's going to the NHL. The roster was filled with those type of guys, and we had a guy there, Justin Abdelkader, who played in the NHL for a long time with Detroit. Very highly respected role guy. Well, my job was the penalty kill over there, and Justin wasn't playing a ton, and he grabbed me and he goes, "Hey, coach, can I be part of this with you? I want to feel like I'm helping more. Can I, when you're doing your video, can I come sit with you? Can I, help with the guys, all those things?" So it was really interesting for me to learn and go through that. And at the end, it was interesting because I asked him about that. I said, okay, this is a different group of guys in some ways than I'm used to coaching. And he went back to the first thing I talked about. He goes, "Lars, the biggest thing was really just connecting with people and being competent. And when the guy is at that level, can see that you care, that you're connecting with them, that you can build a relationship. Now at that level, they also want to know you're competent. So you better be ready, because they'll sniff that out real quick." I found out that people are people. And if you have good people, it's the same. It's the same. They want to learn. They want to get better. Now they're going to test you a little bit more because they want to know, like I said, that you're competent and your stuff. They want to know that you can help them. And if they believe you can help them and you can build a relationship and be authentic and get close to them, especially as an assistant coach, I think they're looking for the same things there, even though they might be higher level players as our players are here.
Wow.
Final question for you, Brett. That's the obligatory NCHC question. Every year, your conference is one of the best in hockey. Are you expecting once again to have one of the top conferences in the nation? And who do you think is going to be some of your biggest competition this year?
Absolutely. I think it'll be the best league in college hockey. Last year it was, hands down. You think of it, we finished 4th in our league and 7th in the country when the last day of the regular season. That's how good that league was and is. With some of these extra seniors coming back for the extra year, this league has been deeper, better than it's ever been. Obviously, I think on paper, a lot of people are looking at Denver with them coming off the year they had last year and some of the moves they've made in the offseason and who they retain. You always kind of look to them. After that, honestly, this thing is wide open, in my opinion. We've got 7 other great teams. A lot of newness and freshness this year again compared to last year. But I would tell you that I think this league is wide open. I think that this league, everybody's going to continue to get better, and it's going to be wide open. But I would say a preseason pick, people are probably looking at Denver.
Brett, appreciate your time as always. Good stuff, and good luck this year. We'll talk to you down the line.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy it.
All right. Thanks. Brett Larson, head coach of St. Cloud State. We'll get to vision for the division in a second. But first, let me tell you about sodastick.com. Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out right now. They've got some great designs. The Beauty League design is awesome. They have a Minnesota Fighting Saints design they just revealed. All of their apparel screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You will love it, and we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFN for 15% off. That is sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFN for 15% off your next order. It's time now, Pat, to do our vision for the division feature this week. As what have we done so far? We've done the Jets,
Jets,
We've done the Blackhawks. We've done
Nashville.
Nashville. Now we're moving on to the Arizona Coyotes. Not much to say about this team, Pat. They were one of the worst in hockey last year. They ended up with the second worst record in the NHL, 25-50-7 for only 57 points. And I don't think they got any better in the offseason.
Well, I don't think they got better for this season.
Yes,
But
that's what I meant.
Yep. But what I think they did, and I think they understand. Listen, they're moving into a 5,000 seat arena next year.
Yeah.
Their hopes are to build a new arena, and in that time frame, they are going to continue to build with draft picks and younger players. And if you look at their lineup, and I look and I see some guys in there that are fillers that are going to be there for the next 2 years and be gone. But I see a bunch of kids that are going to be part of their core. And will they hang on to Clayton Keller? We'll see. We'll see what happens with him. Nick Schmaltz, another guy, pretty good player, could be a big part of their core. Had a good year last year. Lawson Krause, they just re-signed. Big kid who's got some ability. Barrett Hayton, another first-round pick. Jack Mcbain, who was a Minnesota Wild draft pick, who they eventually traded to Arizona because he didn't want to sign here. Is he going to develop? Nathan Smith, you remember him, Minnesota State from a year ago. Really good young player, could be part of their core. So they have some younger guys. But with younger guys, they're not ready to win in the National Hockey League. If it was a league of 21, 22-year-olds, different story. It's not. They're playing against some awfully good teams with awfully good older players. So it's going to be a tough season for them. They will play hard. They will win games because teams are going to take them lightly, and they're going to win games, but just not on a consistent basis.
Yeah, last year they were last in the National Hockey League in goals for. They were 30th in goals against. Their power play was 30th. Their PK was 28th. They were last in shots per game and last in shots against per game. And at one point in the year, I remember watching the Wild play them, and I said, this is one of the worst teams I've ever seen in the history of the league. Though they did win a couple games at the end of the year as it was closing off. But as you mentioned, Clayton Keller, 28 goals, 35 assists, 63 points. But even with Keller, I like Clayton Keller.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if that's the guy that I want to be the face of my team that is making over $7 million for an extended period of time. You understand what I'm saying? Like
100%.
From a salary contract standpoint, like I kind of want him to be in my top six and kind of an additional player, but I don't want him to be the guy.
I agree. We look at teams, right? And we can pick a team. Let's pick Minnesota. Well, Kaprizov is on the ice. He's on the ice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put Keller in, compare him to a McDavid but take another team, with their top guy. And when you look at Clayton Keller, you don't notice him on the ice right away, right? It's not like, we got to stop this guy. He just kind of, he fits in. He'd be a good, top six guy, obviously, but not the face, not the number one centerman or, winger, whatever the case may be. Just, very good player, but not to that. Doesn't scare you.
I'm still curious what's going to happen eventually with their best player on their team, their defenseman Jacob Chikrin, who had a bit of a down year last year. He kind of missed half the season with injury, but he's been in trade rumors. He's still just 24 years old, has a very reasonable contract. It sounds like they are asking a lot for him, which is why they haven't dealt him yet. But that's kind of the one piece on the team that is, I think, very desirable for other teams.
And you got to wonder why, right? Why is he still there? I know they're asking a lot. Or why are they considering trading him? Is it because they don't, is there something going on behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Does he not want to be there? Do they not like the attitude that he brings? I don't know, but it's a mystery. The same could be said for a guy like Chicago getting rid of a 24-year-old DeBrincat and
Yeah.
Kirby Doc. So if you're on the block at that age and you're a budding superstar, you got to wonder. I don't know what that is. Maybe they think, well, if we do trade him, we can get so much back that's going to help us even more. That
Yeah.
very well could be the case. But as you're 100% correct, they are asking for the moon right now, and they're not going to get what they're asking for. And we're going to have to see how that plays out, because if they do end up trading him, and it's for a fair deal, boy, there'll be a lot of teams jumping in.
Another defenseman on the team I'd like to get your opinion on is Shane Gottesbeer, who emerged on the scene as a rookie 6-7 years ago in Philadelphia. He was second in the Calder voting. People were anticipating this is a superstar in the making.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty disappointing since. Last year was his first year in Arizona, and from a number standpoint, I'm not going to act like I went through the analytics and the and that kind of stuff defensively, but offensively, his numbers were getting closer to where he had been, as one of the best in his career. What's going to happen to him, given the expectations off of year one?
He's very, very talented, very gifted offensively, can run a power play. I think it's been a big problem with him is getting to the right team sometimes, and getting with the right partner and getting in the right role. He's not going to thrive in Arizona. He wasn't going to thrive in Philadelphia, a team that just for whatever reason, they were never in sync. They gave up a ton of goals. It was just kind of a hodgepodge. I think he needs to be in a system where they're going to say, Shane, we want you to run our power play. We're going to play just really more of a controlled environment with a better team. I think he would prosper. So there's a guy that potentially could get dealt also during the season if someone needs a good power play guy.
As you mentioned, Arizona won't be any good this year, but they are building. They are building for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Hopefully, they'll have a new building at that point if they haven't moved out of Arizona. But you mentioned that they acquired Jack Mcbain from the Minnesota Wild for a second-round pick. Unfortunately for them, they had to forfeit their first-round pick, the number 11 overall pick in 2021. They had a bunch of draft capital in this year's draft, though. They had 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, including drafting Minnesota Golden Gopher, Logan Cooley at number 3.
And he'll be at Minnesota for 1 year, and he'll be in their lineup while, he'll be with their organization, whether he's up or not, whether they think he's ready or not. But yeah, and then just like we talked about, they're building through the draft, which is what you have to do. They've hit rock bottom. There is potential there, though, because of the fact that they will be getting a new building in a couple of years. And once they do that, they'll spend, hopefully, right? We've heard that before.
It's been kind of a disaster in that regard.
It really has. Yeah. People say it's a great market. Well, it hasn't been yet. But if they do get one in a good place, then they can spend some more money. And with all the draft picks they have, they're just going to have to bite the bullet, and the fans down there are going to have to bite the bullet and have trust in Armstrong, their general manager, that they can get it done.
You don't have a good season when the guy who was third on your team in points leaves in free agency for a 1-year, $1.5 million contract. That's what happened with Phil Kessel. He moves on to the Vegas Golden Knights. Offensively last year, he only have 8-9 goals. He did, for a guy who was a goal scorer, did not contribute as much offensively, getting up there in age. But still, for a team like Arizona, even losing to Phil Kessel kind of hurts a little bit.
It does hurt. And let's talk about Phil Kessel a little bit, because he's the butt of jokes. But he's got to play 9 more games to become to take over the Iron Man in the National Hockey League. Okay, so people can talk about, oh, look at him, look at him, look at his body. Okay, look at his body. He's played 982 or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Games without missing, without getting hurt.
And why do they make fun of his body? Because he can skate.
Now I know,
it
right?
ain't slowing him down.
Mean, he can skate. He can still shoot. No, he's not the Phil Kessel of 6-7 years ago. Whatever. Everyone loses a step.
Most players aren't. Yeah.
But I will tell you, with the personnel that Vegas has, even though they lost Pacioretty, they still have Stone, they still have Carlson, they still have Marchessault, they still have Martinez, they still have
you can say Eichel.
Jack Eichel. They, I mean, they do. And the defenseman, why am I drawing a blank from the Blues? One of the best defensemen in the league. Pietrangelo, thank you. So he might just fit in perfectly with that team. And so, I just don't like when, people go after a guy and he's won 2 Stanley Cups and he's going to set the record for the Iron Man and can still play, not at the highest level that he was, but still pretty damn good.
All right, last Arizona Coyotes topic. They weren't super active in free agency, but they did get former Minnesota Wild forward Nick Bukestad, who signed to a 1-year, $900,000 deal. Obviously, Bukestad, kind of iffy on getting opportunity here and being in the lineup, whereas he should have ample opportunity to make the lineup there in Arizona.
Yeah, I talked to Nick this summer, and he's really, really excited about getting down there. He wants a chance to play a bigger role. He should be able to at least vie for more playing time down in Arizona. It's a big year for him if he wants to stay in the league. He's been playing on these 1-year deals, for the last 3 years. So it's going to be a big year for him, and great kid. Should hopefully he'll get that opportunity.
All right, final topic before we get to stick taps and get out of here, Pat. The Wild signed forward Sam Steele yesterday, young kid who was playing with the Anaheim Ducks, drafted in the late first round a couple of years ago. Still 24 years old, maybe hasn't produced offensively like the Ducks had hoped he would. They let him go to free agency. I don't know a ton about him other than he can skate. He's got some speed. Do you know anything about Sam Steele? Can you help me out?
Well, yeah. His rookie year, he played the minors, and I saw him down when I was doing an Iowa Wild game, and I looked at Joe O'Donnell, who was my partner at the time down there. Now he's up here with Minnesota, and I said, "Who is this kid?" And because really, really skilled, power, could skate, and he was very, very impressive. Now, let's go 2 years later, and he makes it to the National Hockey League. And, I look at him, and I'm hoping this is the case, Brandon, because you and I have talked about Joel Eriksson Ek, right?
Yeah.
For the last couple of years, or, prior to the last 2 years. And we were waiting. Is it there? Can he play? What role is he going to play? And lo and behold, he came into his own, right? And the last 2 years, Ek has been one of the better players in the National Hockey League. Why? Well, maturity and getting to know the league and getting confident and building your game and having someone, have your back. I am hoping that the same thing happens to a Sam Steele, because he is 24 and he hasn't played a lot in the National Hockey League yet. Trust me, the skill level, the speed, the power, he drives hard to the net. I'm anxious to see what he can do, what role he will play. He will play on this team this year. There's no question about it. In what role, we'll see. And if he can become, if his talent can match, the NHL level, they got a good one.
Wow. All right, let's finish the show as we always do with a little stick taps. Patrick, who are you going to give your stick tap to today?
Well, this one is going to go to it's a place called The Ranch, and it's in the name of Mark Pavlich, former Olympian, who passed away I think it's 2 years now, and I played in an event the other day, and they bought this facility in Sauk Center, and it's going to be a mental health facility for people who need help, like Mark needed help, and it's going to be open to vets, it's going to be open to athletes, it's going to be, quite frankly, open to anybody, and they're raising a lot of money, and Clint Malarchuk, former NHLer, is a big voice behind it. A lot of good hockey people involved that are doing this in honor of Mark, and so my stick tap is to the ranch.
Very worthy stick tap. I'm going to go do 2 stick taps today, both to women's hockey players.
All right.
First stick tap goes to Hillary Knight. She had 2 goals against Switzerland on Monday. She had another goal last night, increasing her career tally of world championship points to 84, which is tied for second in tournament history, just 2 behind Haley Wickenheiser, who has the record of 86. And then my other stick tap goes to Sarah Nurse from Team Canada. She became the first women's hockey player to grace the cover of EA Sports' NHL series. So
that's awesome.
Stick tap to them.
Yep.
All right, great. Patrick. Great episode as always. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod.
Sounds great. Have a great week, Brandon.
All right, he's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. As always, we are sponsored by SodaStick.com. Thank you so much for watching or listening to Beyond the Pod. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.